Yo, what up, a-holes? Thank you for tuning into the Holistic A-Hole podcast. My name is Eric Levi, and I'm the Holistic A-Hole, the mommy blogger with balls, the inconvenient truth of health, and a certified nutritional therapy practitioner. I almost said yoga instructor. I'm not a certified yoga instructor. I'm a certified nutritional therapy practitioner. Thank you all so much for tuning in here to the latest episode here of the podcast, where today I have my good friend Veronica Pagel on the podcast, and I'm excited for you guys to hear this podcast because we talk about nutrition, we talk about health, and we talk about movement and fitness, which is so interesting to me. You know, like when I was a kid, I was so into like working out and reading like the muscle and fitness magazines and, you know, trying to get jacked. And then when I was in high school and college, it was all about, you know, it was all about getting jacked. And then I just let go of fitness for years, you know, as I was, you know, mostly when I was pursuing stand-up comedy. It's not really a job that is favorable towards health and fitness. In fact, you actually it's better for you to be in worse health and conditioning to be a successful stand-up comedian, you know, because you got fat jokes, you got sick jokes, you got bald jokes, you got skin jokes, you got autoimmune jokes, you got diabetes jokes, you know, so nobody wants to laugh. Nobody's going to laugh at somebody who's like, oh, I'm in great shape. Hey, did some CrossFit this morning. Hey, how about those kettlebell swings, huh? So I let go of fitness for a while, and really in the last year, my fitness game has been taken to a whole other level, and it's cool, like talking to people who know what they're talking about when it comes to fitness, because I really have no idea. You know, I'm like a little lonely orphan in the gym, and now people are coming up to me and like helping me out. You know, I got trainers and stuff. Like it's like people are so. It's so fun because like people look at me do these exercises so wrong and my form is so bad. Like, you know how bad you have to be in the gym when just strangers walk up to you? Because when you're in the gym, strangers don't talk to each other. You know, everyone just goes into the gym, gets their workout done, and leaves. When you are so bad at movement, when you are so unflexible and your hips don't move right and your ankle mobility sucks and you're like, you know, you're grunting by just, you know, flexing, you know, stretching and doing this stuff, it's like people walk up to you like, hey man, like you need like actual shoes to work out, like good workout shoes, you know. Hey man, like you need to like not bend your back like that. Like you should really probably, you know what, don't do the weights. Here's a PVC pipe. Why don't you just squat the PVC pipe for a couple months and get this down? Oh, it's so frustrating, but it's so interesting to me, and I don't mind like being totally naive to this. It's kind of like my new thing. I find like a lot of people now my age, when you're kind of like in your mid to late 30s, it's like you start picking up hobbies, and you know, if I told 25-year-old me, or maybe if I told like 30-year-old me, like, hey dude, you're gonna get really into power lifting, you know, in your late 30s, I'd be like, what the hell happened to me? But that's what I'm into. You know, and I'll go to the gym and I'll sit for 15-30 minutes fucking squatting a PVC pipe, and it's totally fine with me because it's so interesting. So when I sit down with someone like Veronica, who actually has a background in fitness, in movement specifically, when we talk about these things, like I'm so enamored in just, you know, the human body and the things the human body is capable of. And, you know, Veronica's also a nutritional therapy practitioner. She's a, you know, a CrossFit trainer. She knows massage therapist. She knows all these different, you know, holistic alternative muscle and movement therapies. You know, we talk about groundwork, we talk about grounding, we talk about energy, healing through energy. I mean, just so much cool stuff, you know, and the mainstream media, man, they don't want you to know this stuff. So you can only get it here on the Holistic A-Hole podcast. If goddamn CNN knew what we were talking about, and they knew that healing through energy was more effective in studies than their stupid pharmaceutical pills that they use to fund their bullshit fake news, man, the whole media would crumble. They couldn't afford it because nobody would be buying that goddamn medication. You know, if you just know that your body's made up of energy and certain minerals and things like affect you and can actually take your health to another level before fucking all of these goddamn pills can. Man, there really would be so much better health in people. We wouldn't have childhood obesity like we have. So much shenanigans in the healthcare industry. So me and Veronica, we talk about a lot of this stuff, and it's cool to talk to someone like that. She runs a gym out in New Jersey, in Newark, New Jersey, called Brick City Gym. If you live anywhere in the New Jersey, Newark area, I highly recommend checking out that gym. Newark is it's an up and coming place there. But this really is like the crown jewel, I think, of Newark, New Jersey. And Newark is growing, you know. Businesses are going out there. They got a Whole Foods there. So, you know, it's, the writing's on the wall, kids. Newark's the next one. So I'm excited for you guys to hear this episode with me and Veronica. And before I get into the episode, just a couple quick announcements. First off, if you are in New York City, New Jersey, Long Island, Philly, upstate New York, any of these places, make sure February 23rd you come out to ConBody in the Lower East Side, Manhattan, 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock p.m. I'm doing my first ever holistic a-hole nutrition workshop. It's called Breakthrough Nutrition, and we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of the details of health. I'm going to, from the top of your head to the bottom of your asshole, teach you how to use food to optimize your health. And I mean, I'm thinking I'm going to put a lot of doctors out of business with this workshop. You know, if you're a doctor and you rely on people being sick, if I were you, I'd start getting your affairs in order, because people aren't going to need to see you anymore. They're not going to be sick anymore after they come to this workshop. And I'm really hoping to do a lot of these. I think I'm going to make this a regular thing. Definitely around New York. You know, my goal is to travel and come to cities and do these seminars and workshops. And quite frankly, they're going to be more like health shows, you know, and I want to work with people and work with other like health influencers, as gross as that word is. But I want to work with other people in this, because I really feel like there's a lot of people in this health space that have an amazing, incredible message. I would even say life-changing, and I just want to get the information out to as many people as I can. So if you are in New York City or in the New York City area, proximity, come out to ConBody on February 23rd. That's Saturday from 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock. You can find ticket information on my website, holisticahole.com/breakthrough nutrition or breakthrough-nutrition, or you can just go on Eventbrite and just search Breakthrough Nutrition there in New York. Tickets will come up, or I mean, you could just show up and I'm gonna we can get the tickets settled there. But coming out to that. Also, if you are new to the podcast, please make sure you subscribe. If you love it, go on to iTunes, leave a 5-star review. Find me on social media: Facebook Holistic A-hole, Instagram Holistic A-hole, Twitter Holistic A-hole. The YouTube Holistic A-hole YouTube channel is popping like it's hot, blowing up. Oh man, I'm getting too old to say these words. But yeah, you guys, thank you all again so much for tuning in, and enjoy the podcast with Veronica.
But it works. So I put that thing, I had shingles in my face, like one of my trigeminal nerves, one of the branches of it, that's where my shingles was. So I did one treatment of microcurrent to my face, and I only got a small little bit of a rash. It completely stopped the rash in its tracks.
Okay.
Which all goes back to energy, and there's just so much in health.
Yes.
That we can't even conceptualize yet.
Yeah.
You know, and everyone's got their own little avenue, but trying to bring it all together is...
See, so that's interesting. So I just hit record. Okay. So we recorded some of that. That's okay. Good. You guys, you just listen to some real scandalous stuff here from our guest, Veronica. Is it Pagel?
Yep.
Veronica Pagel. She's a nutritional therapy practitioner here in New Jersey, lovely Newark, New Jersey. I got to take the New Jersey Transit out here from Times Square. It was a great trip, very lovely transportation, and here in Newark, the new Newark, the what do they call it? The Emerald City of the Northeast.
No, probably not. Definitely termed Brick City for sure.
Yeah, I like it. So we're here at your gym right now. This is the Brick City Gym.
Yep.
And this is your gym.
Yes.
And it's pretty cool. I like it as being like a little bit of a gym rat myself. You got all the fun stuff. You got the wall balls. You got the bars, the barbells. You got the kettlebells. You got the little rings. The assault bikes. Oh, fuck the assault bikes. Oh, goddamn those things. Some
Rowers
boxes.
in the corner. That's right.
Yeah.
You got it all.
Yeah. It's a heck of a place here. So
Thank
you've had this place open now for how long?
About 2 months. My partner and I, we signed our lease last January and then just had a grand opening in December.
That's awesome.
So he's had a gym for about 10 years down further south in New Jersey. And I've been wanting to do this for quite some time. So we came together and here we are.
Yeah. So I should just mention too, I know it sounds like somebody's in the back like retiling the floor. That's just Veronica's dog playing with I guess it's a giant plastic water bottle, a New Jersey bone, as they would call it. But you know, just so you a-holes out there know. So I wanted to bring you on the podcast today to kind of talk about some things. We talk a lot about health. I talk a lot about nutrition on this. And this one's going to be interesting because I want to talk about actual like fitness with you, like actual physical fitness. We're going to get physical. And you're big into movement,
yes,
which I find so interesting, especially because we were just talking about like holistic health, right? Like that's what this is, the holistic a-hole, you know? And perfect. I get caught up talking about nutrition, but there's like so much more to this whole thing. Absolutely. You know, like, you know, you're talking about this this book here by Jerry Tennant, Healing is Voltage. And, you know, we talk about nutrition, we talk about energy, you know, it all like plays into the health, and it's also overlooked. You know, everyone just wants to know like, okay, how do I do the keto diet so I can lose 25 pounds? And then they think all their problems are going to be solved. And what I've noticed is that definitely like in nutrition, it's like when you start messing with one thing, you send a whole bunch of other stuff haywire.
Absolutely.
So I find that when you can combine as many of these different elements as possible, especially movement, you know, that really brings it all home.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, when you really start honing in on nutrition, you have to have things moving properly to function together optimally. So if you are literally not moving, because most of us work as, you know, we sit at a desk most days, like most people, unfortunately. Fortunately for us, we don't necessarily do that, but you know, the overwhelming majority of the population out there has to sit at a desk for about 8 hours. So you are actually limiting what goes on inside of you, not just you actually getting up and moving around, but how your organs function together as well. And that kind of all ties into a fascial aspect that we can talk about as well, but just how things in your system bind together if you're not inducing movement. Yeah,
I think like when people think about health, like they completely forget, like people are like, I'm gonna go to the gym and I'm gonna jog on the treadmill, or I'm gonna go to the gym and I'm gonna do the bench press, without really thinking like, what am I at, like what are the muscles that I'm actually moving and what do they do and how do they connect?
Right, absolutely. And I also think people tend to go to extremes with stuff, right? So just like we were talking about, like, I want to jump into the keto diet. Do you even have a hold of, you know, what you eat on a daily basis? Instead of jumping into something that's so foreign to you, why don't you just try to make a change or two? And it's the same thing with movement, right? So if you're sitting at a desk all day, why not try to get up for 5 minutes every hour? You know, something like that. And then you can kind of tie it into more floor-based movements like what we do with Animal Flow. And then you can jump into strength training, and then kind of a progression. You know, we forget about the progression, and with everything, it's baby steps. You know, you're not going to jump into something, just like we were talking about Tony Robbins before, right? He's this huge guru now, but in his backstory, he had to take so many steps to get to where he is, you know, to be successful and to be that man on the top of the world. we have to do the same thing with our own lives and our own health. And it all ties together between nutrition, your baby steps, and movement, your other baby steps.
Right. You know, kind of like my entrance into like the whole world and idea of holistic health was kind of slowly but surely getting into yoga. And, you know, at first I was like getting into the real weird stuff. I was like, where do I start? Oh, I'll start with crystals and Reiki and magic potions and spells and stuff. I went to fucking Sedona, by the way. Side story. Spent like $200 on crystals because they're all like...
Where are your crystals now?
Oh, they're just in a bag somewhere in the bottom of a box in my apartment. Still definitely giving off energy for sure.
Perfect.
Like one of them is like, this can clear you of like, protect you from Wi-Fi signals. And I'm like, this is a 10,000-year-old stone. Did they have Wi-Fi signals 10,000 years ago that I wasn't aware of?
However, energy has persisted as long as the universe.
Very true.
So you never know what those crystals are really doing.
Very
for you.
true. But my point was, what I was going to say was, what started to kind of get me, like what hit it home for me was the idea of connecting this kind of thing of like when you walk, like looking up, like kind of like keeping your head above the horizon, you know? And when I started to kind of think about that, and then kind of this idea of like, okay, when I walk, I want to straighten my back. I want to have good posture. I want to keep my head up. And it's funny because when I became aware of that, I would like walk around New York and I would see just everybody with their heads down. You know what I mean? Like everybody, and it's not just the phones. It's like people are like hunched over, you know, and then you start to see the hunch. And it was actually, my wife would give me so much shit because she was a yoga instructor and she would just, we'd be walking and she'd be like, you've got a humpback. She's like, you need to straighten your back. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, because to me, the way I was walking was normal. And I was also like depressed and had anxiety and, you know, everything was like gonna fail. And then it was like, just, I don't want to use the word magical, but I'm going to use the word magical because when I started to do that, when I started to do yoga and just focus on like, okay, how do I open my back? How do I open my shoulders? How do I open my chest? Let more air into my body, into my diaphragm. It was like the world just started to kind of become like a better place to me.
So very interesting about this, right? We wear our demeanors. Literally wear our demeanor. So you were talking about being hunched over and being like on the express train as you're walking through, right? Everything's got to be fast, quick, got to get done. We're a little more defensive up here. Kind of my backstory, and this interestingly ties into what you're talking about, is I went to undergrad down at Wake Forest in North Carolina, right? So a much more slow environment down there. They called me FedEx on campus, right? Because of exactly that. I was on the go, my head was down, not even in a cell phone because cell phones were just starting to come into existence right then.
I thought it's because you delivered.
That's right.
Right.
That's right. So, you know, I don't think consciously I was thinking about it that way, but my demeanor opened up because I became a little more ingrained with their way of doing things, right? You stop, you talk to people, you look at people when you walk past them, you say hello, and then you just keep carrying on. And in order to do that, you have to open up in so many different ways, not just looking up, but actually want to converse with someone and speak to them. So it kind of started back then, and that's really when my journey with healing, I guess, took place. I went to school. I wanted to go to med school. Was an undergrad in bio and chem. When I graduated, I wasn't really sure if I wanted to go to medical school. So at the time, I was working in a hospital, and I decided to go back to grad school for athletic training. Super into sports when I was younger, even in college. That's kind of what I did. Figured out that I wanted to work more intimately with people instead of just seeing a patient here and there and following up with them sporadically. I wanted to be a little more invested. So that's where my movement base really started. Athletic training has a lot to do with rehabilitation, movement prep, you know, so there's a couple different aspects to athletic training that are not necessarily inherent to physical therapy, which is why I chose that route instead. So after grad school, I went straight back into massage therapy school. I was the least touchy-feely person you could possibly imagine. And I was still very uncertain about massage therapy because massage therapy, talk about crystals and kind of like a whole different aura itself, but it was a learning experience for me. Fast forward about 4 or 5 years, I decided to get into more fascial work. Through a lot of continuing education, I came across Tom Myers and anatomy trains, and it was just something that sat in the back of my mind for a couple months, and I'm like, you know, there's something to this. So I jumped right into his year-long course, which was a combination of movement, fascial, and massage therapy work, because that was his background. But that also opened me up to energy. So funny story, the first week that we were down in class there, they did this whole weird, very out of the box for me kind of birthing ceremony.
Sure. This is massage therapy?
This is KMI structural integration, so it has everything to do with the fascial system.
Okay.
And I looked at people around and I was like, I think I'm in the wrong place. I definitely think I'm in the wrong place. However, through that year-long process of learning how to manipulate fascia through my hands, I also learned a lot about people's energy and how we wear, you know, what we convey to the world.
Absolutely.
And how changeable it actually is.
Yeah.
Through movement.
Well, it's like, I do want to ask you about fascia, but I do want to just kind of say too that it's like when we, you know, like I'm not a big massage guy. Like massages really bother me. I don't know what it is, but it's like I can't like lay there and like have somebody digging into me like that. And I don't know if it like works for me. I also haven't had like a lot of professional massages, but I do know, I mean, there are people who get massages for the mental aspect, you know? And so, I mean, right there, you have the connection, like the mind-body connection of that.
Absolutely. So physical touch is something that isn't addressed very much in today's society either. Like we are so much more quote unquote connected through social media and stuff, but we've become so disconnected through physical touch. If you really think about it, when do you really go up and shake hands or give someone a hug? Like that seems to be a very intimate thing today, whereas way back when they used to use touch a lot more often to communicate, and now we don't. We've kind of pulled that away. So some people are very adverse to going in and getting a massage or getting worked on that way, which is why some of the movement stuff that we do, the same kind of sensation and triggering that you get in your mind from physical touch, you can actually get from the ground too.
Right.
So that's why those two things tie in very well, because if you're kind of opposed to having someone work on you, you can literally work on yourself and get a similar response in your system.
And you're saying from the like working on the ground? How does that? What does that even mean?
Literally, just you laying on the ground and moving on the ground and getting in contact with the ground, allowing your body to feel things in a different way. So instead of just putting your feet on the ground and walking, we talked a lot about crawling, and that's part of animal flow. And I also took another course called Original Strength, was amazing. But it talked about the feedback that we get through our hands that we don't get very often. And there's other things we do, rolling, for example. You're literally laying on the ground and you learn how to utilize your body to turn over, either onto your stomach or back onto your back. And that stimulation that you get from the ground on your back is as if someone is almost hugging you, right? So it's a physical response that you get without human touch. So it's a different avenue into the brain, into the body, as far as stimulation and feedback is concerned.
So if you're feeling lonely and you haven't had the touch of a welcome partner, you could just get on the ground and you could just kind of rolling around.
Absolutely.
You hear that, lonely a-holes? There's no reason to be sad. Just get on the ground and roll.
That's right.
Stop, drop, and roll and feel good. I mean, that's so interesting to me because, you know, I also like am fascinated by this idea of like grounding, you know, like this idea that, you know, you take your shoes off. And I mean, like, you know, you're in Jersey, I'm in New York City. It's like, where do you ground? Right.
Yeah,
So you find like a little planter and you put your feet in the dirt or whatever. Like I'll go to the park and it's like, I'm in a park. I got to take my shoes off and I just got to feel the earth. And I definitely feel this when I'm at the beach, you know, when you're at the beach and you can feel like the salt water, everybody just feels better at the beach. And
it's not just what you're feeling underneath your feet. It's the literally the vibrations you get off the water, the sensation that your body gets, and everything that it picks up from the salt water in general. Salt water is extremely healing. I can't get into the specifics on that, but there are multiple books out there on stuff like that, and I'll get them to you if you'd like.
Well, here it's like the electricity, like the electric current or something.
Healing is voltage,
right? Plus, it's like like the salt in the water. Yeah, it's just like connecting with the earth. It's so. See, I really feel too that, you know, when we talk about like numbers, you know, everybody wants to put like a reason on like, why is everybody depressed? Why are people like, why are we so connected but we're so lonely? You know, like why do we have access in our phones to every single person on the planet, yet we feel so alone? And I think it's like that thing of like, we're physically not even connected to the earth. We're walking in shoes on the concrete. We're based around, you know, we're trapped in with walls. We're just so far away from nature.
So we can talk about this in a nutritional aspect too, right? So what do we always talk about with nutritional therapy? Like the base of everything is whole foods, right? Whole foods that have come straight from the ground. But what do most of us have access to is chemically altered foods, right? So it's the same thing with grounding. It's the same thing with putting yourself in environments where there's not that much nature. You're muffling everything that comes into your system. It's the same thing with processed foods, packaged foods, and stuff like that. They've basically muffled or altered the way that our system can take in nutrition.
Yeah.
And, you know, grounding is a form of nutrition for us, like a form of feedback.
Absolutely.
For our body. So it's the same thing. You know, the more quote unquote muffled that we are, the further away we are from the real true crux of what we get, the less responsive our systems are.
Sure. So then let's talk about fascia.
Okay.
What is fascia?
What is your definition of fascia? What do you think it is? As someone who really hasn't dug into it quite yet, what do you think fascia is?
Oh man, I wasn't expecting to have to answer questions here. This is my podcast. I ask the questions around here in Newark, New Jersey. They really do things backwards here.
That's right.
I feel like it's like the connecting tissue of your body.
Perfect.
Yeah, bam. Thank God for Wikipedia.
So fascial tissue, a lot of people think it's just this saran wrap covering your muscles. It is honestly, so we talked about your demeanor, wearing your demeanor. It literally is the support system of your entire body. It not only creates the way that you are as far as how you convey yourself to the world. It helps transport all sorts of, it's like a fluid dynamic thing, helps push everything through. It is part of your nervous system. It's very, very linked into your nervous system, and it runs all the way from your skin, all the way to your bone, and it connects everything inside of you.
So is it, what is it? Is it fibers? Is it
collagen
muscle?
fiber, right? So we're all about collagen here.
Yeah, I know.
Yes.
What do you think of that, by the way? Collagen, because it's just like, I feel like 2018 was the year of collagen.
Yeah.
And I knew about collagen when I started eating bone broth, and I was like, oh, it's just whatever, you know? And now it's like, oh my God, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry all of a sudden.
Absolutely, right? But bone broth is probably the best way to get collagen because it's the least chemically altered.
Right.
So collagen is what creates pretty much everything in our system. You know, it is a building block. It helps to solidify us all together. It helps to move us, and all your tissues are created of collagen, just in different levels or different amounts, right? So bone has a lot more collagen in it because it's more solidified. And it's based on the amount of and the differentiation of the collagen fibers.
So do you think collagen, you want more collagen?
Yes.
You want strong collagen?
So your fascial system, which is made of collagen, turns over pretty much every 6 months, right? So you're going to yoga. You're trying to make some changes by opening up your system and changing your tissue structure. The way to do that is to consistently do what you're doing as far as yoga or movement, strength training, all that stuff. But within 6 months, you're going to start turning that over and creating a new look for yourself. And the way to help that look, the way to build on something that you're trying to positively affect your system with, is to give more fuel for the fire, right? So collagen is an amazing supplement, and the best way to do it is to get it through more whole foods like bone broth. But if you have to go into the vital proteins, Great Lakes collagen, and put it in your bulletproof coffee,
sure,
you know, so be it.
Oh,
right?
Do I look like that guy? Oh, God. I think my fascia brought me somewhere I don't want to be.
Yes.
Yeah, I've actually heard that, is it zinc is what makes fascia? So is it better to get the minerals that make it versus like the actual powder?
Yes.
Yeah, because that's what I thought. That's where the scam comes in. Yeah.
Zinc and selenium are two of your major building minerals, and most of us do not get enough of it.
Yeah. That's, it's like, you always know there's something up when, you know, like I start seeing Instagram pictures of like some package thing. I'm like, oh, we're doing collagen now.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, good.
Exactly. But why are we doing it? You know, because what are we pulling away from that we're not supplying our system with? So now we have to get it through, you know, a supplement instead of a food.
So what do you think is the best way to maximize your fascia potential? If that's even a thing that you can do.
It is, but it's through more bone broth type whole food. So I'm a larger proponent of more animal fats, because animal fats they're complete proteins for us.
Yeah, go fuck yourself, vegans.
Sorry. There are ways to do veganism. I'm not totally slamming you, but it's a difficult thing to do.
Yeah.
And we tend to avoid a lot of animal fats. So the problem comes when we start avoiding those things. How do we supplement? Through foods, typically, which I just find it easier to ask people to eat more meats. And I'm not limiting you to just red meat, though I would love to, because I'm a big carnivore girl. But if you can find your way through eating and bringing minerals and vitamins into your system through that way, it's going to get into your system much better if you have decent digestion, right? We learned all about that in nutritional therapy school, but our system is built for that. It's built to break those things down much easier and to get them into our system to be able to be utilized, as opposed to having to piece things together through supplements, through different coupling proteins. If you're going to take in plant-based proteins, we don't digest those things very well, which means that we don't pick up those necessary vitamins and minerals from what we're taking in, which is why we wind up supplementing with collagens and different forms of vitamins and minerals as well.
Right. So like, I remember you were talking about this idea of fuzz. Is the fuzz in the fascia? Is that what that is?
Yeah. So think about, and I'm again sorry if you don't eat meat, but think about chicken, right? And think about kind of taking apart some chicken. When you take the skin off, there's that sinewy stuff, like the stuff that looks almost like a cobweb. That's the fuzz, right? And binding happens when you don't move that much. So those things will start to solidify more and not move as well if you're not moving, right? So those things are great if you're putting them in tension the way that you want to. Like if you're feeding energy through your body the way that you want to feed it through as far as movement is concerned, and posturing and all that type of good stuff that helps open you up and make you feel better. But if you're not moving, either from injury or from restraint from work or some other type of lifestyle, that fuzz that Dr. Gil Hedley talked about, it tends to build up, and then you start getting bound down. You start feeling tight. You start feeling restricted in different ways. You
like tight, like maybe like in your lower back, in like your knees or ankles or something.
Right.
Because I know one thing that I'm dealing with, like as I've gotten back in the gym and I'm squatting now, like I'm all legs, like I'm doing so many legs, and it's like when I was younger and I was just all about the six-pack jack and trying to get the pecs and the guns and all that. It was like I didn't care about squatting. But now it's like I'm all about like the leg movement, and my biggest hang up is with my ankle mobility. you know? And I'm like trying to like piece together, like, how did my ankles become so immobile, you know? And they're slowly but surely getting there. But now it's like I can't stop watching people squat or snatch and go like way down. And it's so fascinating to me to see. And sometimes it comes in the most unlikely places. Like I've seen like just giant dudes who you would not think could get down, could go ass to grass, you know? And to me, I'm like, there is a definite difference in some kind of movement that they're doing and that I'm doing. And it's probably built up over years.
Mm-hmm. It absolutely is. So those guys that can go ass to grass, and not just guys, women as well.
Oh, absolutely. Women have the greatest like squat mobility.
Right, absolutely. They train for that. They put themselves in those positions and solidify those positions by actually doing it on a daily, if not semi-daily basis, right? So movement is habitual. The more you move, the better movement you have. And the more you move without other apparatuses, meaning shoes and support systems like belts or sleeves or stuff like that. The more you move without those things, the better your body responds to movement, even under load. So a lot of people will try to, let's take the squat for example. A lot of people without the proper mobility will try to squat and then add weight when they think they have proper range of motion, like decent range of motion. It's almost like your body is putting a stop on itself because it knows that you're not moving as best as it would like you to. So it's a safety mechanism. So your body's going to be like, you're putting weight on me and then you want me to get down into this motion where I'm not really completely comfortable in. So I'm going to stop you. So people tend to start limiting themselves without even realizing it because your body is smart. Your body's also lazy too. So unless you train in full ranges of motion, it's not going to allow you to go full ranges of motion. And it certainly won't allow it with excess weight on it because that's like it's a danger sign for your body. You know, your nervous system responds to it by limiting things.
So do you think then, like, if you're like, how do I increase my range of motion, whether it's in the squat, my hang up is the snatch. Like I cannot get like I'm trying to do these, you know.
Way to go to the most complex motion that you could possibly do weightlifting wise.
I feel like I've just been like I don't know, in the fetal position for the last 20 years, and I'm just like trying to run and do these Olympic lifts.
Yeah.
But it's like I've also heard that stretching is not the best way to get at this. Correct. So I had a buddy do some Graston technique on me, which was for you a-holes who don't know what I'm talking about. It's like a series of tools. It's like a technique that you can do, and it's literally like scraping down on the leg. At least this is the one I got. You probably just like on the shoulders and the back and stuff. Probably you can do it everywhere. Yep. Mine was for like because my buddy was like, you have terrible ankle mobility,
right?
And he starts working the calf muscle, and it was literally like just taking because we didn't have access to an actual like Graston like instrument,
right.
But he was taking like a bottle opener and just rubbing it down my calf, and it was the weirdest thing. But I'm not even joking. The next week I went and deadlifted more than I ever deadlifted, hitting PRs and deadlifts and hang cleans and all this stuff.
So the amazing thing about Graston is just a tool, and there's different forms of it, right? So there's rock blades out there now. There's all sorts of different tools. There's gua sha tools, which they used to use way back in the day. There's stone instead of metal, right? And that, again, has everything to do with vibration and whatnot it brings to the body. But what Graston really does is it creates circulation. It can't break up adhesions unless you're really digging in, and that's really not the technique you should use with a tool like that. It's not meant to break into tissue. It's meant to give you some extra circulation, and that extra circulation allows your system to pick up on movement better. Does that make sense? Right? So the more it picks up on movement and then you take yourself into that movement in a better way, your body's like, oh, I can do this now. And it lets go of some of the emergency brake that it put on.
So what do you think about stretching then?
So stretching for certain people is highly necessary, right? We're all very different body types. Some are a lot more flexible, possibly too flexible. Some are super inflexible. So for those super inflexible people that are trying to get to certain ranges of motion, stretching is necessary. I don't limit anything, but there's certain reasons. I wouldn't put a very flexible person on a stretching program. I would put an inflexible person that's trying to do certain things on a stretching program. Static stretching, dynamic stretching, you know, there's all different reasons behind it. Static stretching, if you're super limited, does help somewhat to give you a little more change in your tissue, but you have to follow that stuff up with active movement in the way that you want to go, right? So say you want to improve your squat mechanics, right? And your adductors, your groin muscles, for lack of better terms, are limiting you. We do a couple different wall V's, a couple different frog type stretches, and then we start taking you back through ranges of motion where rocking and crawling come back into play too, because that's a squat. So the closer you are to the ground, the more safe your body feels, which is why we do floor-based movements, like crawling, rocking, all that different type of stuff. Again, your body feels more safe to go into the same exact squat position, and then you start moving up into gravity, if that makes sense.
Right,
So you go from the ground to kneeling to standing, and then all of a sudden your body's like, oh, this is the same position, you know, I'm a little more comfortable upright now, if that makes sense.
It does, because I know, like, when I first started squatting, like, you know, my first couple months doing it, it was like, I mean, I couldn't do much weight, and it was just weird because I would just be walking, and all of a sudden, like, and this is out of the gym, obviously, the side of my leg would just cramp up. And I've never had like real physical problems like that, but all of a sudden it was like I literally couldn't walk. Like I literally could not put my foot, and you know, I'm a tour guide in New York City, and I would just be walking, and I'm like, guys, we're gonna stop and talk about this building right here. That's a UPS. Yeah, it's the oldest UPS in New York City right here. If you guys want to take a sip of water, we're gonna just hang here for about 10 minutes while my foot gets back online.
And that kind of goes back to grounding as well, right? Because you're putting your body, if you're in the gym, you're putting your body into all these different positions, and if your foot doesn't have access to kind of give you good feedback, then now you're walking around in different sneakers and you put yourself in a certain position and your body doesn't understand that position. That's pretty much why cramping happens. It's not only dehydration, it's putting your body through movement that your body doesn't understand. So it's a motor control thing. It's a nervous system thing.
Yeah, it's like your body's been trained for years to move one certain way, and it knows it's not right, and it's trying to tell you like, hey, this isn't right.
Right.
And it probably communicates that through like mental health, you think, and through like gut health and things where it's like you just keep doing this wrong. And so we're so disconnected from that physical mental connection.
Yeah, it's amazing how it all ties in a very similar way.
Yeah.
And the symptoms that you feel, kind of like you're cramping, it's not saying that this particular muscle isn't working right. It's saying that the surrounding area just isn't getting that good of feedback. So how do we change this? The same thing with your gut, right? We get bloating, we get distension, we get bad bowel movements. And it's kind of like, oh, whatever I just ate is, most people think that, you know, whatever I just ate is really just not sitting well with me. But honestly, what did it trigger in the rest of your system? Right. To create that symptom that came up.
So let me ask you this, because this is another thing I want to talk to you about, was how do you think like animal flow, right? Because we've talked about this a little bit, that it is a good like basic movement and powerful movement to do, and there's guys that you can see and women that do it. I mean, when you see it done, it's just an amazing, beautiful, like choreographed thing. But you can do this kind of thing with, you know, elderly people and kids, and it opens up a whole other part of your brain.
So I mean, nutritionally, when were we in the best shape of our life? Pretty much when we were babies, right? Movement-wise, too, it happens the same exact way. I have 6 nieces and nephews, and I have always been enamored by their ability to move. Like, they pop into a squat in this ass to grass type of, without even thinking about it, doing everything they can possibly do. You watch them get up from the ground, it's like this fluid motion that goes through without even thinking about it. Like, oh, let me grab onto the couch before I lift myself up because this just isn't firing properly. They just do things the right way. So with animal flow and original strength, those floor-based type of movements, it's almost bringing your brain back to those times. So people talk about, oh, it's like learning how to ride a bike again, right? Because you have progressed into a certain movement that some people just forget how to do. So you bring it back to the basics, right? So the basics we talk about is crawling, it's rolling, it's picking yourself up off the ground. It's holding yourself up in a way that's not a crunch or, you know, like a Roman chair type of thing. You work your quote unquote abs, which everyone's trying to get, but you work them in a way which coordinates fluid motion through your system. And that fluid motion takes over in your mental, it takes over in your nutritional health, by helping everything just literally coordinate with one another better, and it just moves better. Things just flow better when you bring things back to the basics.
So explain this idea of crawling, right? Because I remember we did this once, and it was like, when you're like, okay, we're gonna get on the ground and crawl, and when you first hear that, especially if you're like a meathead dude, you're like seriously, what am I paying all this money for right now? But then you get down and try to do it, and it's like a whole coordination thing that takes you like some time to actually kind of understand. And I think that when you do it, it really does kind of open up some mental pathways that weren't there before.
So crawling in the way that we do it, so we do it contralaterally, which means opposite hand, opposite leg. And you think about how your brain functions in a cross hemisphere way, right? So everything that we do on the right side is connected to the left side of our brain, and everything we do on the left side, our creative side, is connected to the right side of our brain. We forget how to coordinate those things through life, right? So most of us are one side dominant. We do everything with that one side. We rely on that one side. And then it's almost not as if it shuts down the opposite side, but it just gets lazy. And like I said, our bodies will default to lazy as quickly as possible. We are not as optimally as we'd like to run. Our bodies will choose the laziest way to make it work, which is why compensations happen and all that stuff. So when you get back down on the floor and you are almost forced to make your body function the way it was first meant to function, it takes a lot of adults, some serious brain power, to make their right side and left side work together. But once you give it that time and you relearn how to use those cross patterns, it allows your brain to function better. It connects faster. Those synapses of those neurons are just starting to find one another again, and it opens up avenues that you forgot about.
Right.
You absolutely forgot about. Which
Which is funny because now too is like the big explosion of like nootropic drugs, right? Or supplements or whatever it is. I've never done them. I'm sure they work great. I don't doubt it. But there's got to be some kind of like give and take with that, right?
Absolutely.
So it's like, to me, it's like, okay, take, you know, reishi mushroom or whatever it is, but I'm sure there's something else. There's going to be another reaction in your body. Or you just get on the floor and you could roll around and you could crawl.
Absolutely.
And do these things. Like, like your body, like, I don't want to say this, but the creator, nature, has given us like this ability to kind of like come back to zero, right? To come back to like, okay, this is where we are, this is who we are, and this is how we grow. And it's like these simple movements. And it is fascinating to be like, okay, we can do that. And I mean, I haven't been around a lot of babies, but I remember a couple years ago, a buddy of mine, his baby girl was just starting to crawl. And I watched that happen for the first time. And it was a pretty amazing thing to watch a little baby attempt like to get on their knees and to start doing it, and knowing that that is like our first movement in ourselves. And then once we're done, it's like we just graduated, like we're never going to do that again. But there has to be some kind of holistic thing that our body is like asking us to do more of that. Otherwise, why would it be the first thing we ever do?
Right. And it is. Anytime we have some kind of symptom, it's because we're not doing things the way that our body's asking us to do them, right? Just like you said. So with pain, as far as movement is concerned. You know, you're under load, you're on a squat, you're trying to get down, like your range of motion isn't quite there, but you're really trying to press through it meathead wise. You know, you just want those gains, right?
Okay, sorry about that. We are back. Technical difficulties. This is a professional podcast. Yes, indeed, Joe Rogan. You ain't got nothing on the holistic a-hole. Okay, what were you saying?
So, I mean, we really take it to what goes on today, and we're talking about people want results, right? They want goals. So you're going to kind of circumvent, you were talking about the whole neurotropic stuff, right? People will try to biohack themselves. And there's only so much biohacking. I don't care whether it's supplementation or movement or wearing these halos. You know, there's only so much it's going to do that it's making up for what your body can't do. And when your body figures out that it should be able to be doing that itself, it's going to start sending signals to basically say, you need to bring it back to what I can do, as opposed to trying to make it do what it's not ready to do.
Right. Yeah, the biohacking thing, like, I go back and forth with this idea. Like, I think it's interesting. I think, to me, this is like, okay, like the singularity kind of slowly happening where we're like, we are kind of becoming the machines that is the next evolution. So how do we do that? We biohack and try to become superhumans with what? With stuff that we created, and what is it doing? Well, it's just doing more of what our body was built to do anyways. You know, it's like we're wearing these devices to sleep, and we're wearing you know, we're standing on these little rugs that send electric currents, and I think it's super interesting, and I think that this industry is about to explode, obviously. But I also think that there is an element of humanity that we're forgetting about in the biohacking trend, and I think you would get probably similar results if you just learned how to do simple things like basic floor movements or just breathing with your diaphragm.
Completely agreed. Completely agreed. It all goes back to body awareness, right? So just like you were talking about, all these technical things that we try to do, these supplements that we feed into our system, they're all well and good, but unless you can assimilate it into your system and have your body understand why you're putting it in there, as opposed to just doing it for the end result, but not really understanding how to integrate it into your system, it's only going to work for but so long. If you can figure out mentally how to wrap your brain around it, and then physically how to make it work in your system, then you would explode.
Right.
For sure. But you have to figure out a way to integrate it back in, and that's why we bring it back to that stuff. It's all for body awareness. It's all going back to the whole rolling on the floor. It's all for that feedback that your system needs that it's not getting.
Right. Yeah. That's so interesting, because it is the feedback that we're not, you know, it's like we go to the gym, we're like, went to the gym, did it, boom, done. It's, you know, ate a salad, feel good, okay, that's it, done. And you're forgetting this whole other side that it's like, well, there's a give and take, right? What do you really want? Why are you running, you know, 10 miles instead of doing maybe 15 minutes of like high intensity? Right. Is this what your body truly needs?
Right.
And it is that disconnection that I do try to talk a lot about on this podcast, that I think people were just, you know, again, it goes back to the keto or the vegan or whatever it is. It's like, oh yeah, there's beautiful people all over the internet that are doing these diets, and you want to be like them. Well, your body needs something different, but like, I'm in these keto like Facebook groups, and these intermittent fasting Facebook groups, and it's so funny because I kind of troll a little bit, I'm not gonna lie, because I think they're so hilarious, because you have one group that's like, oh God, thank God I did intermittent fasting, everything's, you know, my diabetes are gone, I've lost 30 pounds, and you have some people that are like, I've been intermittent fasting for 4 months and I've gained 5 pounds.
You know what's so interesting about that is that intermittent fasting is a wonderful thing, but when you put too much thought into intermittent fasting, it's going to go against what your body wants. If you're eating properly, intermittent fasting happens.
Right.
Because you don't need to eat. Again, some habits that people need to break out of. But sitting there and harping on it and really making it more a negative thing in your system almost makes your system adverse to it.
Right.
Right. So it's something you have to do instead of something that your body gets to do.
Like, you're literally looking at your watch. You're like 15 hours, 45 minutes, 37, 15, 45, 38. God damn it, I'm not going to be able to do this.
Yeah.
And really, it's like, it really, for everybody, it's like different, right? Like, you don't, I know they say 16-8 or whatever. Some people are fine with 14. Some people are fine with 12,
Absolutely.
you know? Like, where are you at with your body, right? And if you're not listening to your body, if you're not getting that feedback, then how you doing it, right?
Awesome.
So you do a lot of, I know we're a little pressed against it for time, but I just wanted to ask you about this. You work with kids.
Yeah.
And I think that's so cool, because if I would have gotten somebody who understood health from a perspective like you understand it, instead of like my PE teacher, Miss Christine, who's like, do some jumping jacks. All right, you're getting in shape, physical fitness. I feel like, you know, this is what kids need. And I think if anything else, the reason I am so passionate about holistic health is because I do see that the disconnect that we have with kids, the fact that kids are so obese, so sick. I mean, the amount, when I hear about a kid with diabetes, like, it crushes me, you know? When I hear about the autism rate, like, it just wrecks me, because I'm like, this is, you understand, in 20 to 40 years, these are the people that are going to be running the country, and they're going to be on fucking dialysis.
Yeah.
Most of them.
Crazy.
So the fact that you, like, you work with kids and you're teaching them health and fitness from this perspective, I think is very interesting.
Yeah, and it's so much fun, to be honest with you. So we deal with middle school and high school kids as well. The middle school kids are more interesting to wrap their brain around mentally, right? So they really have to start understanding why they're doing this. And then with the high school kids, we're allowed to dig a little more in depth with them as far as the nutrition aspect is concerned. But again, going back to holistically, unless you start with getting them to understand that they need to wrap their brains around things, then you could talk to them till you're blue in the face about ingredients. But unless they understand how what they choose is going to affect how it comes into your system, which will affect how it allows you energy or movement or stuff like that. Those things are so necessary, which is why it's really cool to start at a younger age with them, you know, because it's not just like, here, let me give you a presentation. It's more like 6 months later and they finally start listening to you, because they've grown a little more accustomed to you being around there. So it takes some time, and luckily we've been afforded the possibility of working with some of the schools around here, which has been awesome. And just like going back to basics, it takes weeks and months to kind of build those associations so they trust you, so their brain lets off the emergency brake and they can actually listen to you, and then they move better and they feel better and they ask more questions, and things are just kind of growing in a very organic type way.
And they'll take it with them.
Yeah.
Like, they'll grow with this. Like, I mean, I still think back when I was like 16, 17, that was like the 90s. And, you know, like, I was getting all the bodybuilding magazines, like the Flex and the Muscle and Fitness. And you see dudes like Ronnie Coleman and Flex Wheeler and these just jacked guys. And just thinking about, like, they were like, you need to have a gram of protein per body weight. And that just stuck with me. And I would just suck down protein shakes, by the way, back then were not anywhere close to what they, I mean, they were like a mix between motor oil and like clay. I mean, they were just brutal. And you'd be like, this is working. And like, this is not doing, I'm sure this is killing me in some way.
Yeah. And to be able to present to them better options, you know, not that you're forcing them to do it, but you give them the capability to choose better things, and for them to realize that it's not just in their small little environment that they can choose from, now that they have access to other things that are coming in.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yep.
Well, I know you have to get to one of these classes here, so we're gonna sign off here. But is there anywhere that that the a-holes that listening today could find you, maybe online, or come out here to your gym and work out with you guys?
My IG handle is VP Holistic Care. You can find us at Brick City Strength, either on IG or on Facebook as well.
Awesome. And I gotta say, this is an absolutely amazing gym. It's still got that new gym smell.
Yes.
Everything is like pristine. There's not chalk everywhere. It looks great. You guys done a great job, and I'm excited to see it grow.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing the Holistic A-Hole podcast, Veronica.
Appreciate it.
And we'll catch you guys on the next one.
Cool.
Hey guys, just a quick reminder as you head on out here. Thanks so much again for listening to the podcast. If you loved it, please go on to iTunes, leave a 5-star review. If you haven't done this yet, make sure you subscribe to the podcast. It's very easy. Just click the subscribe button right there in your phone, in your podcast player, whatever you listen to this on, and share this with people you love. Again, if you're in New York City, February 23rd, 4 to 6 p.m., Lower East Side, ConBody Gym, 121 Ludlow Street. I'll be doing a holistic a-hole health workshop. So thanks so much for listening, everybody. Really appreciate your ears, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.